Rex's claws tore at the frozen ground until blood streaked the dirt. The German shepherd's howls shattered the pre-dawn silence, not the alert bark of detection, not the aggressive warning of danger. This was primal anguish. 18 feet below, Officer Jake Sullivan pressed his bleeding palms against the collapsed ceiling. Maria Torres, unconscious beside him, their oxygen running out with every ragged breath. They had 6 hours, maybe less, and the only one who knew they were dying was a dog the search team kept trying to pull away from the site. Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel and watch this story until the end. Comment what city you're watching from so we can see how far this story has traveled. Now, let's continue. 6 hours earlier, Rex had been the problem. "He won't settle," Jake said, gripping the K-9's lead tighter as they pulled into the abandoned industrial park off Highway 74. The shepherd's muscles were coiled springs, his attention laser-focused on something Jake couldn't see. Maria Torres checked her watch. "We've got 30 minutes before shift ends. Whatever's got him worked up, let's clear it fast." Rex doesn't get worked up over nothing. Jake released the lead. "Search." The dog exploded forward, weaving between rusted machinery and crumbling warehouse foundations. His path wasn't random. Jake had worked with Rex for 5 years, knew every nuance of the animal's body language. This wasn't prey drive or curiosity. This was alarm. "Jake, look at this." Maria crouched beside fresh tire tracks cutting through undisturbed ground. "Heavy vehicle, recent, maybe last 24 hours. Rex circled a patch of disturbed earth, barking once, twice, the trained alert for detection. Jake's radio crackled. "Unit 7-3, status check." He thumbed the transmit button. "Dispatch, we're following up on suspicious activity at the old Riverside mining site, requesting backup for—" The world went white. Not an explosion. Worse. Chemical burn in his nostrils, vision tunneling, Maria's scream cutting off mid-sound. Jake's fingers found his service weapon, but his muscles wouldn't respond. Rex's snarl turned distant, underwater. Hands grabbed his vest, dragged him across gravel. He tried to fight, but his body had become a stranger. Darkness swallowed him completely. The first thing Jake felt was cold. Bone deep, seeping through his uniform into his chest. His head throbbed with each heartbeat. When he tried to move his arms, panic detonated in his stomach. Confined space, hands zip-tied behind his back. Complete darkness. "Maria?" His voice came out cracked, throat burning from whatever they'd used to knock him out. A groan answered him. Close. Maybe 3 feet away. "Maria, talk to me." "Jake?" Her voice shook. I can't see anything." "What happened?" "Don't move yet. Let your eyes adjust." But even as he said it, Jake knew the truth settling in his gut like lead. This wasn't darkness waiting for adjustment. This was absolute absence of light. He shifted, trying to assess their prison. His shoulders hit a wall, dirt, not concrete. The ceiling pressed low enough that sitting up scraped his head against rough timber supports. The air tasted stale, heavy with minerals and earth. "We're underground," Maria whispered. "Oh God, Jake, we're buried." "Stay calm." Jake forced authority into his voice, even as his own heart hammered against his ribs. "Breathe slow. We need to preserve oxygen." "Oxygen?" The word came out sharp with rising hysteria. "How much oxygen do we have? How deep are we?" "I don't know yet. Let me think." Jake worked his wrists against the zip ties, testing resistance. Heavy duty, probably law enforcement grade. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. He rolled onto his side, ignoring the shooting pain in his shoulders, and felt along the ground with his bound hands. His fingers found Maria's boot. "I'm here," he said. "You're not alone." Her breathing was too fast, verging on hyperventilation. Jake had seen panic attacks before, knew how quickly they could spiral in confined spaces. "Maria, listen to my voice. Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. "I can't. There's not enough air." "There's enough. Count. 1, 2, 3, 4. She managed a shaky inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Again. They counted together in the darkness until her breathing steadied. Jake used the time to catalog everything he could feel. Dirt floor, timber supports overhead and on 3 sides. One wall felt different, rougher, like raw stone. The space was maybe 6 feet by 8 feet. A tomb. No, not a tomb. A chamber, deliberately constructed. "Someone built this," Jake said. "This wasn't random." Maria's voice came steadier now, the detective's mind engaging despite the fear. "The tire tracks. Fresh excavation. They brought us here specifically." "Which means they have a reason to keep us alive." Even as Jake said it, he wasn't sure he believed it, but Maria needed hope right now. They both did. "Our radios?" Jake tried to reach for his belt, but the zip ties made it impossible. "Check yours. Can you reach it?" He heard her struggling, cursing softly. Then silence. "It's gone," she finally said. "They took everything. Radio, phone, flashlight, weapon." Jake's stomach dropped. "Same here." "So nobody knows we're missing yet. Shift doesn't end for..." She paused. "What time is it? How long were we out?" "I don't know." The implications hung between them. If they'd been unconscious for hours, if their shift had ended and they'd simply failed to clock out, dispatch might assume they'd stopped for food or were running late on paperwork. In a rural county with limited units, it could be 6 or 8 hours before anyone started seriously looking, and they'd never think to look here. "Rex," Jake said suddenly. "Rex was with us when they hit us." "You think he got away?" "I know he did. Rex won't leave me. If he's free, he'll find us." Maria's silence said what she wouldn't. That faith in a dog seemed like thin hope when they were buried alive. But Jake had seen Rex work miracles before. 2 years ago, a missing child in the San Bernardino Mountains, hypothermic and unconscious under a fallen tree. Rex had tracked for 14 hours straight, refused food and water, collapsed the moment he'd alerted on the child's location. The kid had lived because Rex didn't quit. He wouldn't quit now. "We need to figure out where we are," Maria said. "Can you feel the walls? Any openings?" They worked in careful coordination, Jake exploring what he could reach with bound hands while Maria used her feet. The chamber was sealed, except for what felt like a narrow ventilation shaft in one corner, barely 4 inches wide, extending upward into darkness. "Air's coming through there," Jake said, pressing his face near the opening. "Can you feel it?" "Barely. Jake, if that's our only air source and it's that small..." She didn't need to finish. They both understood math. This much space, 2 people consuming oxygen, a restricted airflow. They had hours, not days. Then we make those hours count. Jake shifted, trying to find a position that didn't make his shoulders scream. "Talk me through what you remember, everything before they hit us." Maria's breathing had steadied, the detective's training taking over. "Rex alerted on disturbed ground, fresh tire tracks, heavy vehicle, possibly dump truck or construction equipment." "You called for backup?" "And then nothing. They were waiting for us." "Ambush," Maria agreed. "Probably watching our approach. They knew we'd investigate." Knew we'd called it in. Hit us before backup could arrive. The question is why? Jake's mind worked through possibilities. This site's been abandoned for 20 years. What's worth killing 2 cops over? Maybe we weren't supposed to die. Maybe this is just... She trailed off. Just what? A warning? People don't bury cops alive as a warning, Maria. Then what? Buying time? Keeping us out of the way while they move something? Jake thought about the tire tracks, the fresh excavation. Could be a dump site. Could be they're hiding something here they need time to relocate. Or could be we're not the first people they've buried. The words hit Jake like a fist. He'd been so focused on their immediate survival, he hadn't considered the darker possibility that this chamber, these timber supports, the ventilation shaft, all of it spoke to practice, to repetition. How many people go missing in Riverside County every year? Maria's voice was quiet now. How many disappearances that never get solved? Stop. Jake needed her focused, not spiraling into nightmare scenarios. We're getting out of here. Rex is up there. Our people will be looking. We just need to survive long enough. How long is that? I don't know. Silence stretched between them. Jake's eyes had stopped trying to adjust, accepting the absolute darkness. His other senses sharpened in compensation. The mineral smell of earth, the faint movement of air through the ventilation shaft, the sound of Maria's breathing too close to panic again. Then another sound, distant, muffled by layers of earth, but unmistakable. Barking. Rex, Jake breathed. That's Rex. Maria went still. You're sure? I'd know his voice anywhere. He's up there. He's looking for us. The barking continued, growing more frantic. Jake pressed his ear against the dirt wall, trying to gauge distance. Maybe 15 feet? 20? Without tools, without help, it might as well be a mile. But Rex's persistence meant something else. They hadn't been unconscious as long as he'd feared. The dog was still in search mode, not waiting for handler mode, which meant shift change hadn't happened yet. Which meant when they didn't clock out, someone would notice faster. We need to make noise, Maria said. Let him know where we are. They shouted until their throats were raw. Jake kicked at the timber supports, ignoring the pain shooting through his legs, but the earth swallowed their sounds, muffled every impact. Above them, Rex's barking never changed tone. Still searching, not alerting. The dog couldn't hear them. Jake slumped back against the wall, exhaustion and chemical hangover crashing through his system. Save your energy. He can't pinpoint us, not through this much earth. So what do we do? We wait. We trust Rex to keep searching. We trust our people to listen when he won't quit. And if they don't? Jake didn't answer, because the truth was too terrifying to speak aloud. If no one took Rex seriously, if they pulled him away from the site, if dispatch assumed Jake and Maria had simply gone off radar, they would die down here in the dark. Maria must have reached the same conclusion. Her breathing quickened again. Tell me about your daughter, she said suddenly. Emma, right? She's 16? Jake understood what she was doing, grounding him, forcing him to think beyond their tomb. 17 next month. Wants to study criminal justice at UC Berkeley. Following Dad's footsteps. Yeah, I keep telling her there are easier ways to make a living, but she's stubborn. Gets that from her mother. The familiar ache bloomed in his chest. Sarah would have loved how Emma turned out. Smart, fierce, doesn't take crap from anyone. How long has it been since you lost her? 6 years. Cancer. Went fast once they found it. Maria was quiet for a moment. Emma's lucky to have you. She might not feel that way if I die in a hole before she graduates high school. You're not dying in a hole. We're not. But Maria's voice carried uncertainty she couldn't quite hide. Jake felt it too, the weight of earth pressing down, the stale air growing heavier with each breath, the absolute helplessness of their situation. Above them, Rex's barking cut off abruptly. Jake's heart stopped. No, come back! Rex, come back! But silence answered him, complete and suffocating. Maybe someone found him, Maria offered. Maybe whoever buried us came back to finish the job. The implications crystallized between them. If their attackers returned and found Rex alerting on this site, they'd know the dog could expose their location. They'd eliminate the threat. Rex can handle himself, Jake said, trying to believe it. He's trained for hostile encounters. Against armed suspects? Jake, if they've got guns, then he'll evade and alert. That's what he's trained to do. But fear coiled in Jake's gut. Rex's loyalty was absolute. If he thought Jake was in danger, the dog wouldn't retreat. He'd defend the site until someone forced him away. Or killed him trying. Maria shifted in the darkness. We need a backup plan. If Rex can't lead them to us, what else can we do? Jake's mind raced through options, discarding each one. They had no tools, no light, no communication. Their hands were bound. The chamber was sealed except for the ventilation shaft, which was far too narrow for escape. Unless... The ventilation shaft, Jake said slowly. It goes up. Somewhere above us, it has to open. So? We can't fit through 4 inches. No, but sound might carry better through it than through packed earth. If rescue gets close, if they're searching the surface, they might hear us shouting through the shaft. Maria's voice lifted with the first real hope since they'd woken. We could guide them directly here. Exactly. But we have to time it right. Can't waste energy shouting when no one's around to hear. How do we know when they're close? We listen. For vehicles, voices, equipment. When we hear something, we make noise through that shaft until they find us. It was desperate. It was slim. But it was something. They fell into silence, listening. Jake tried to track time by his heartbeat, but fear kept accelerating it, making seconds blend into minutes. The darkness played tricks on his mind. Phantom lights at the edge of vision, sounds that might be rescue or might be imagination. His shoulders ached from the zip ties, his head throbbed. Thirst crept up on him, making his tongue feel thick. How long since they'd been taken? 2 hours? 3? And how much oxygen remained? Maria broke the silence first. Jake, there's something you should know. About this site. What about it? 3 months ago, Detective Division got an anonymous tip about illegal dumping here. Hazardous materials, chemical waste from manufacturing. We investigated but found nothing. Closed it as unfounded. Jake's pulse quickened. Who caught the call? Detective Bennett. He did the site inspection himself, said it was clean. Cole Bennett? Jake tried to picture the internal affairs detective. Tall, mid-40s, 20 years on the force. You think you lied in his report? I think someone tipped us to look here for a reason, and I think whoever buried us knew we'd come investigating. This wasn't random, Jake. Someone wanted us out of the way. Bennett's IA. He investigates corruption, doesn't participate in it. Unless that's perfect cover. Maria's voice carried conviction now. Think about it. Who better to hide criminal activity than the guy assigned to root it out? Who'd suspect the internal affairs detective? Jake wanted to dismiss it as paranoia born from their situation. But Maria was right. This hadn't been random violence. Someone had prepared this chamber, waited for them, executed a precise ambush. That level of planning suggested resources, protection, insider knowledge. If you're right, Jake said slowly. If Bennett's involved, then calling for backup might have triggered this. He'd know we were coming here. He'd know we'd find something. which means he can't let us surface. Whatever we might have discovered, it's worth killing cops to protect. The weight of it settled over them like the earth above their heads. They weren't just buried. They were targeted. And the people looking for them might include the very person who'd put them here. We can't trust the rescue, Maria said. We can't know who's compromised. We can trust Rex. We can trust Captain Hayes. Jake's mind worked through the chain of command. Hayes is solid. 30 years clean. If anyone's going to question why we disappeared, it's him. If he listens to the dog. He will. Hayes knows how K9 units work. He won't dismiss Rex's alert. Jake hoped he was right, because if Hayes pulled Rex off the site, if Bennett managed to redirect the search, if the wrong people controlled their rescue, they were already dead. Above them, so distant it might have been imagination, Rex's barking started again. Rex's barking echoed somewhere above them, persistent and anguished. Jake pressed his face against the ventilation shaft, straining to hear anything else. Voices, footsteps, the rumble of rescue equipment, but only the dog's desperate cries filtered through the earth. He's wearing himself out, Maria said. How long can he keep that up? As long as it takes. Jake's throat tightened. Rex had worked in 100-degree heat, tracked through snowstorms, never quit until Jake called him off. But this was different. The dog didn't understand why his handler wouldn't respond, wouldn't emerge from the ground and praise him for a good alert. We need to reach something, Maria said. Phone, radio, anything they might have missed. Jake twisted his wrists against the zip ties, feeling the plastic bite deeper into his skin. They took everything off our belts. I already checked. Check again. People miss things when they're in a hurry. They worked in the darkness, contorting their bodies to feel every pocket, every seam of their uniforms. Jake's fingers found lint, a stick of gum, loose change. Nothing useful. His backup weapon should have been in his ankle holster, but that was gone too. Whoever had done this knew exactly what to strip. Then Maria gasped. Wait, my boot. There's something in my boot. What is it? Can't tell. It's small, feels like... Oh God, it's my personal phone. The backup one I carry for Emma's emergencies. Jake's heart hammered. Can you reach it? Trying. The zip ties, I can't bend far enough. Her breathing came in frustrated bursts. If I could just... Use the wall. Brace your back against it and push with your legs. He heard her struggling, cursing under her breath. The sound of fabric tearing, a grunt of pain. Almost. Got it. Something clattered against the dirt floor. Maria? It fell. I dropped it. Help me find it. They scrambled in the darkness, hands bound behind their backs, feeling desperately along the ground. Jake's fingers brushed something hard and smooth. Here! But his bound hands couldn't grip it properly. The phone slipped away. Don't lose it, Maria said. That's our only chance. Jake shifted, trying to pin the phone between his palms. His fingers found the power button. He pressed. Nothing happened. The battery's dead, he said, despair crashing through him. No, wait. I keep it on low power mode. It takes forever to boot up. Maria's voice trembled with desperate hope. Give it 30 seconds. They waited in suffocating silence. Jake counted heartbeats, each one feeling like an hour. Rex's barking had stopped again, leaving only the sound of their breathing in the confined space. 20 seconds. 25. 30. A faint glow illuminated the chamber. The phone had powered on. For 3 seconds, they simply stared at the light, the first visual confirmation that they were alive, that the world beyond this tomb still existed. Then reality crashed back. No signal, Maria said, reading the screen. Of course there's no signal. We're buried under 20 feet of dirt. Check the battery. How much do we have? 12%. Maybe 20 minutes if we're lucky. 20 minutes. One chance to reach someone, to document what had happened to them, to leave evidence if they didn't survive. Call 911, Jake said. Maria angled the phone, her bound hands making every motion awkward. She managed to hit the emergency call button. The screen showed the attempt, the phone desperately searching for any signal, any connection to the network above. Call failed. Again, Jake said. She tried 3 more times. Each one failed. It's not going to work, Maria's voice cracked. We're too deep. Then we record a message, video. Everything we know about how we got here, who might be responsible. If they find our bodies, at least they'll know what happened. You mean when they find our bodies? Maria, don't try to comfort me right now. We both know the math. This much space, 2 people, restricted airflow. We've got maybe 6 hours of breathable air left, and that's optimistic. Jake wanted to argue, but she was right. He could already feel the difference, the air growing heavier, each breath requiring more effort. Soon they'd start getting drowsy, then confused, then unconscious, then dead. Unless Rex led someone to them first. Start recording, he said. We're not dead yet. Maria positioned the phone, its light casting harsh shadows across their dirt prison. Jake saw her face for the first time since they'd woken. Dirt-streaked, fear evident in her eyes, but her jaw set with determination. She hit record. This is Officer Maria Torres, badge number 2847, recording on November 14th at approximately... She checked the screen. 2:47 p.m. I'm buried underground at the old Riverside mining site off Highway 74 with my partner, Officer Jake Sullivan. We were ambushed during a routine patrol after his canine, Rex, alerted on suspicious activity. Jake leaned into frame. We have reason to believe this is connected to a prior investigation involving Detective Cole Bennett from Internal Affairs. 3 months ago, an anonymous tip reported illegal dumping at this location. Bennett investigated and cleared the site. We think he lied in his report to protect criminal activity here. We're recording this because we don't know if we'll survive, Maria continued. Our oxygen is limited. Our radios and primary phones were taken. This backup device has 12% battery and no signal. If you're watching this, it means... Her voice broke. Jake took over. It means we didn't make it out. But you need to investigate this site thoroughly. Whatever they're hiding here is worth killing cops over. Bennett can't be the only one involved. Check his financials, his associates, his case history, and... He paused, emotion overwhelming him. Tell my daughter Emma that I fought to get back to her. Tell her I'm sorry I won't see her graduate. Maria wiped her eyes, smearing dirt across her face. Tell my mother I love her. Tell her I wasn't scared at the end. But she was. They both were. The phone's battery indicator dropped to 11%. We need to preserve power, Jake said. Send the video to someone while we can. Who? If Bennett's monitoring communications, if he's got people inside the department, send it to Emma. She's not on any official channels. Bennett won't think to intercept a message to a civilian teenager. Your daughter's 17. You want her to receive a video of us buried alive? I want her to have evidence if we die. I want Bennett to pay for this. Jake's voice hardened. Emma's stronger than you think. She'll know what to do with it. Maria navigated to the messaging app with shaking hands. She typed Emma's number from memory, attached the video, and hit send. The phone showed the message uploading. 1%. 2%. 3%. Then it stopped. Upload failed. No connection. Damn it! Maria tried again. Same result. The dirt's blocking everything, Jake said. We need to get the phone closer to the surface. How? We can't exactly climb out of here. Jake looked at the ventilation shaft. 4 inches wide. Barely enough for air, but maybe enough for something else. The shaft. If we can get the phone up through it, even part way, it might catch enough signal to send the message. That shaft goes up at least 15 feet. How do we? We don't. We let gravity do the work, in reverse. Jake's mind raced. We need something to push the phone up the shaft. Something rigid enough to extend, but flexible enough to navigate the tunnel. They searched their immediate space with renewed urgency. The phone's light revealed details Jake hadn't seen before. Timber supports showing rot in places, dirt walls reinforced with what looked like chicken wire. And in the corner, partially buried, a piece of rebar about 3 feet long. There, Jake said. That metal rod. Maria dug at it with her boots, kicking dirt away until she could hook the rebar with her foot and drag it closer. Jake managed to grip it between his bound hands. This might work, he said. If we can wedge the phone against it somehow, push it up the shaft, use my belt, we can strap the phone to the rebar. They worked frantically, Maria sliding her belt free while Jake held the rebar steady. With bound hands and fading phone light, it took 3 attempts to secure the phone. The battery dropped to 9%. We've got one shot at this, Maria said. Once the phone's up there, we can't get it back. Then we make it count. Jake positioned the rebar at the base of the ventilation shaft and began pushing upward. The phone's light disappeared into the tunnel, leaving them in darkness again, except for the faint glow filtering back down. He pushed. The rebar scraped against the shaft walls, catching on roots and rocks. Jake's shoulders screamed in protest, the zip ties cutting into his wrists. He pushed harder. 6 feet, he estimated. Maybe 8. Keep going. The rebar suddenly lurched upward, freed from whatever obstruction had held it. Jake pushed with everything he had, extending his arms until his shoulders felt like they'd dislocate. That's it, he gasped. I can't reach any higher. Is it enough? Can you see the signal bars? Jake squinted up the shaft. The phone's screen was visible, a tiny rectangle of light in the darkness above. He watched the signal indicator. No bars. No bars. No. 1 bar flickered into existence. We've got something! Jake's heart pounded. It's weak, but it's there. The message began uploading again. 5%, 8%, 12%. Then the single bar vanished. Upload failed. No, no, no! Jake tried adjusting the rebar's angle, searching for that sliver of signal. Come on, just a few more seconds. The bar returned. The upload resumed. 15%, 20%. Above ground, Rex's barking erupted again, closer this time. And with it, voices. Won't stop. Been at it for 2 hours straight. Pull him back. We need to search the western quadrant. Captain Hayes wants him to work. Says the dog knows something. Jake's breath caught. Hayes was here. The captain had listened to Rex. Maria, they're right above us. We need to make noise, now. They shouted through the ventilation shaft, screaming until their voices gave out. But the voices above moved away, Rex's barking following them. They hadn't heard. Jake slumped against the wall, exhaustion crashing through him. The phone's uploaded frozen at 42%. The battery showed 6% remaining. It's not going to send, Maria said quietly. We are going to die down here, and no one will know why. We're not dead yet. Jake, look at the battery. Look at the air. We're out of options. We've still got Rex. He's not giving up. Rex is a dog. He can't dig through 15 feet of earth. He can't tell them where we are. Jake wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Because she was right. Rex's loyalty was absolute, his determination unbreakable. But without human hands to excavate, without equipment to break through the dirt and timber, the dog's efforts meant nothing. The phone screen dimmed to conserve power. 4% battery. "I have a son," Maria said suddenly. "I never told anyone at the station. He's 3, lives with my ex-husband in Phoenix. I only get him on holidays because I work too much, because this job takes everything. Maria, I thought I'd have time to be a better mother. Thought I'd make detective, get better hours, be more present in his life. But I spent every spare minute on casework, on climbing the ladder. And now," her voice broke, "now he's going to grow up knowing his mom died underground, and he probably won't even remember what I looked like." Jake's own grief rose in his throat. Emma, at 7 years old, watching her mother waste away from cancer. Emma, at 11, asking why Dad worked so many nights. Emma, at 16, independent and fierce, and trying so hard not to need him because she knew how demanding his job was. "Emma asked me last week to take a day off for her college visits," he said. "Berkeley, Stanford, USC. I told her I'd check the schedule, make it work. But I knew, we both knew, that something would come up. Some case, some overtime, some excuse why the job had to come first." "Did we choose wrong?" Maria asked. "Did we sacrifice the right things?" "I don't know. I tell myself we protect people, that the work matters. But if I die today, Emma loses her last parent because I couldn't walk away from a suspicious tire track." The phone battery dropped to 3%. The upload remained frozen. Above them, Rex's barking had taken on a different quality, not searching anymore, but guarding. The dog had found their location and was defending it. But defending it from what? "Someone's coming," Jake said, hearing footsteps through the earth. "Rex is alerting on an approach." They listened. Multiple footsteps, heavy boots, and then a voice that made Jake's blood run cold. "Call the dog off or I put him down." Detective Cole Bennett. Maria grabbed Jake's arm in the darkness. "He's going to kill Rex." "Hayes won't let him. Hayes knows canine protocol." But through the ventilation shaft, they heard the confrontation unfolding. "Step back, Bennett." That was Hayes, authority ringing in his voice. "The dog's working." "The dog's delaying the search. We need to clear this area and move on." "Rex doesn't false alert. If he's holding position here, there's a reason." "Then bring in the excavator. Dig it up, but get that animal secured first." Jake's mind raced. If they brought in excavation equipment, they'd find the chamber. But if Bennett controlled the dig, if he could redirect it, delay it, contaminate the evidence. The phone battery hit 2%. The upload jumped to 58%, then stopped again. "We're running out of time," Maria whispered. "In every way possible." Jake made a decision. "Start shouting. Everything we know about Bennett. Scream it through the ventilation shaft. Even if they can't hear the words, they'll hear sound coming from underground." "Bennett's right there." "He'll try to stop the rescue." "Then we make sure everyone hears us accuse him first. Put it on record. Force Hayes to investigate." They positioned themselves at the ventilation shaft and began shouting. "Cole Bennett buried us! Bennett is corrupt! He's protecting criminal activity at this site!" Above, Rex's barking intensified. "Check the investigation files! Bennett lied in his report 3 months ago!" Through the shaft, Jake heard Hayes bark an order. "Everyone shut up! Do you hear that?" They shouted louder. "Voices," someone said. "Coming from underground." "That's impossible. This site's been abandoned for—" "Get the excavator, now!" Hayes's command cut through everything. "And someone get Bennett away from my dog before I file assault charges." The phone screen went dark. 0% battery. But the upload indicator had reached 93% before dying. Jake didn't know if the message had sent, didn't know if Emma would receive their last words, their evidence against Bennett. All he knew was that Hayes had heard them, that rescue was coming, that they had minutes left to survive. Maria's hand found his in the darkness. "Thank you for not letting me give up." "Thank you for reminding me what I'm fighting for." Above them, an engine roared to life. The excavator was moving into position, but so was something else. A sound Jake recognized from years of law enforcement, the mechanical click of a service weapon being drawn from its holster. Bennett wasn't going to let them surface alive. The metallic click echoed through the ventilation shaft like a death sentence. Jake's blood turned to ice. "Bennett's armed," he whispered to Maria. "He's going to shoot someone up there." "Hayes won't let him get close to the excavation." "Hayes doesn't know Bennett's dirty. None of them do." Above ground, Rex's snarl turned vicious. The dog had sensed the threat, positioned himself between Bennett and the dig site. Through the narrow shaft, Jake heard the standoff unfold. "Control your animal, Sullivan." Bennett's voice carried barely contained rage. "Oh wait, you can't, because you're not here." "Rex, heel!" Hayes commanded, but the shepherd ignored him, focused entirely on Bennett. "That dog attacks me. I'm within my rights to— You fire that weapon at a police canine and I'll have you in cuffs before the echo fades." Hayes's tone left no room for argument. "Holster it. Now." A tense pause, then the sound of a weapon being secured. But Jake knew they'd only delayed the inevitable. Bennett couldn't let them surface, couldn't let them tell Hayes about the investigation, about the lies, about whatever criminal operation was worth burying 2 cops alive to protect. The excavator's engine growled louder, closer. "How deep do you think they are?" someone asked. "No way to know until we hit something," Hayes replied. "Could be 15 feet, could be 30. "Captain, we don't even know for sure there's anyone down there. Could just be acoustic anomalies, echo chambers in the old mining tunnels." Rex knows the difference between empty tunnels and his handler. "We dig." Maria squeezed Jake's hand harder. "The air's getting worse. Can you feel it?" He could. Each breath required conscious effort now, like trying to inhale through wet cloth. His head pounded. Nausea rolled through his stomach in waves. "Stay awake," he said, as much to himself as to her. "Talk to me. Tell me about your son. What's his name?" "Diego, after my grandfather." Her words came slower, slurred slightly. "He has my eyes. My ex-husband's smile. Laughs at everything, even things that aren't funny." "Sounds like a good kid." "He is. He's perfect. And I'm going to die without telling him." She stopped, breath hitching. "Without telling him I'm sorry for choosing this job over him." "You didn't choose the job. You chose to protect people. That's different." "Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, buried alive in the dark, it feels like the same thing." The excavator's bucket bit into earth above them. Dirt rained down through the ventilation shaft, making them cough. The timber supports creaked ominously. "They're right on top of us," Jake said. "Just a few more feet." But Bennett's voice cut through the machinery noise. "Hold position. I need to check something." The excavator went silent. "What's he doing?" Maria asked. Through the shaft, Jake heard footsteps approaching their location. Then Bennett's voice, quieter now, speaking into what sounded like a phone. "They're about to breach the chamber. You need to contain this, now." Jake's stomach dropped. Bennett wasn't alone. He had backup, people who could shut down the rescue, contaminate evidence, make 2 buried cops disappear permanently. "We need to warn Hayes," Maria said. "How? We can barely breathe, let alone shout loud enough for them to hear us over." A new sound cut him off. Engines. Multiple vehicles approaching fast. "Captain Hayes?" An unfamiliar voice. "FBI. We're going to need you to step away from the excavation." Jake's heart stopped. The FBI? How did they? "On whose authority?" Hayes demanded. "On the authority of an ongoing federal investigation into trafficking operations at this site. This is now a federal crime scene. Your people need to clear the area immediately." "I've got 2 missing officers and a canine alerting on this exact location. I'm not going anywhere." "Then you're interfering with a federal investigation. I can have you removed forcibly." "Try it and see what happens." Jake's mind raced. If the FBI was here, if they were claiming jurisdiction, that meant Bennett had connections that went far beyond local corruption, which meant the danger was exponentially worse than they'd imagined. "They're going to stop the dig," Maria said, panic rising in her voice. "They're going to leave us here." Hayes won't let them. But even as Jake said it, he heard the excavator being shut down completely, heard the crew being ordered away from the site, heard federal agents establishing a perimeter. Rex's barking turned frantic, desperate. The dog lunged against his lead, trying to reach the dig site. "That animal is compromising our scene," the FBI agent said. "Remove it." "That animal found my missing officers," Hayes shot back. "You want him gone? You'll have to shoot me first." "Captain, don't make this harder than it needs to be. 2 of my people are down there dying. You tell me how this could be any harder." Through the ventilation shaft, Jake heard a scuffle, raised voices, the distinctive sound of handcuffs clicking shut. "Captain Raymond Hayes, you're under arrest for obstruction of a federal investigation." Maria's breathing had become shallow, rapid. "Jake, I can't stay awake." "Yes, you can. Listen to me. The FBI doesn't just show up randomly. Someone called them. Someone who knew we were here." "Bennett called them. You heard him on the phone." "No, Bennett called someone who called the FBI, which means there's a whole network. Which means..." Jake forced his oxygen-starved brain to work. "Which means Emma got our video. Had to. That's the only thing that makes sense. She received our message and went to the authorities." "Emma's 17. Why would federal agents listen to a teenager?" "Because she's smart. Because she'd know exactly who to contact, exactly what to say." Pride and terror warred in Jake's chest. His daughter was fighting for him above ground, while he suffocated below it. "She's fighting for us, Maria. We have to hold on." But the air had become soup. Each breath pulled in more carbon dioxide than oxygen. Jake's vision swam with dark spots even in the pitch blackness. His thoughts scattered like leaves in wind. Maria had gone quiet beside him. "Maria? Maria, talk to me." She didn't respond. "No, no, no." Jake shifted, trying to reach her face with his bound hands. He found her throat, felt for a pulse. Still there, weak but present. "Stay with me. Don't you dare quit on me now." Above, Rex's barking had taken on a quality Jake had never heard before. Pure anguish. A sound no dog should ever make. The shepherd knew his handler was dying, could probably smell the carbon dioxide building up in the chamber, and he was powerless to help. The dog's grief broke something in Jake's chest. He'd trained Rex from a puppy, watched him grow from a ball-obsessed goofball into one of the finest canine officers in the state. They'd saved lives together, caught killers together, spent thousands of hours learning each other's thoughts and movements until they operated as one unit. And now Rex had to experience what no loyal dog should ever face, sensing his partner's death and being unable to prevent it. "I'm sorry, boy," Jake whispered toward the ventilation shaft, knowing the dog couldn't hear him. "I'm so sorry." His own consciousness began to slip. The darkness behind his closed eyes was the same as the darkness with them open. His body felt distant, disconnected. The pain in his shoulders from the zip ties faded to nothing. This was it. This was how he died. Not in a shootout, Not protecting civilians, but suffocated in a hole because he'd gotten too close to someone's criminal enterprise. Emma would grow up without either parent, would probably blame herself for whatever had happened, would carry that guilt into adulthood, let it poison her relationships, her career, her life. He'd failed her, failed Maria, failed Rex. Then a new sound penetrated his fading awareness. Shouting. Not federal agents, different voices. "That's my father down there. You can't just leave him to die." Emma. Jake's eyes flew open in the darkness. His daughter was here, above ground, fighting the same people who'd buried him. "Miss Sullivan, you need to step back." "I'm not stepping anywhere. My dad sent me a video. He and Officer Torres were ambushed. Detective Bennett did this." "I gave you everything, showed you the evidence, and you're just going to let them suffocate?" "The situation is more complicated than you understand." "No, it's not. It's actually really simple. There are 2 cops dying underground, and you're standing around talking about jurisdiction instead of digging." Jake tried to shout, to let Emma know he could hear her, that he was fighting. But his lungs wouldn't cooperate. The words died in his throat as consciousness slipped further away. Maria stirred beside him. "Emma? She's here. She's fighting for us. Tell her about Diego. Tell her to find my son and say..." Maria's voice faded. "Say his mama loved him more than anything." "You'll tell him yourself. Stay awake, Maria. Just a few more minutes." But minutes felt like hours, or maybe hours felt like seconds. Time had lost meaning in the oxygen-starved darkness. Jake wasn't sure if he was still breathing, or if his body had simply forgotten how to stop. Above, Emma's voice rose to a scream. "You're killing him! Don't you understand? Every second you waste, he's dying!" Then another voice, female, calm, authoritative. "Stand down, all of you. I'm Deputy Director Sarah Chen, FBI. Someone tell me right now why we have a 17-year-old girl providing better intelligence than my entire field office." "Ma'am, the situation is that we have 2 law enforcement officers buried alive and you're worried about protocol? Get that excavator running, now!" "But the integrity of the crime scene will be preserved by not letting our witnesses die before we can interview them. Move!" The excavator roared back to life. Rex's barking shifted to something almost like hope. Jake felt the vibrations through the earth, heard the bucket tearing through soil. Closer. Closer. The timber supports above them groaned under the pressure of the machinery. "Maria, wake up. They're coming for us." She didn't respond. "Maria!" He shook her with his shoulder, the only part of him that could still move. "Don't you dare die on me. Your son needs you. Diego needs his mother." Nothing. The excavator hit something solid. The impact reverberated through the chamber, dislodging dirt from the ceiling. One of the timber supports cracked with a sound like a gunshot. "We've got structural instability!" someone shouted. "The chamber's collapsing!" "Then dig faster!" That was Emma, her voice cracking with desperation. The bucket withdrew, came back down. Withdrew again. Each impact sent shockwaves through Jake's dying body. The ceiling sagged. Dirt poured in through new cracks. They were going to die anyway. Buried alive or crushed by the rescue attempt. Either way, they wouldn't see the sun again. Jake's last thought before darkness claimed him was of Emma's face. Not as she was now, 17, fierce, fighting federal agents to save her father, but as she'd been of 3 years old, laughing as he pushed her on a swing set. "Higher, Daddy! Higher!" He'd pushed her as high as he could, hoped he'd given her enough momentum to keep going without him. Then the ceiling gave way completely. Light exploded into the chamber, blinding after so long in darkness. Hands grabbed him, pulled him upward through churning dirt and splintered timber. Voices shouted instructions he couldn't process. His body moved without his consent, lifted and carried, and placed on something solid. Air hit his face, real air, clean and cold and sharp enough to hurt. Someone pressed an oxygen mask over his mouth and nose. "Breathe. Come on, Sullivan, breathe for me." He couldn't remember how. His lungs had forgotten the mechanics of it. "Dad!" Emma's face swam into view above him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Dad, please, please don't leave me." For Emma, his body remembered. He dragged in a breath, then another. Each one felt like swallowing broken glass. But he kept breathing because his daughter was watching, and he'd be damned if he'd quit on her now. "Maria," he managed to gasp. "Where's Maria?" "They've got her. She's alive. Barely, but alive." Jake turned his head, saw Torres on a second gurney 20 feet away. A paramedic was performing CPR, counting compressions in a steady rhythm. No, no, no. She had a son. She had Diego. She couldn't die before telling him she loved him. "Get Bennett," Jake rasped. "He did this. He buried us." "Bennett's gone," Emma said. "He ran the second the FBI arrived. But they'll find him. Deputy Director Chen has people tracking him right now." Jake's vision began to clear. He saw the rescue scene. Multiple emergency vehicles, FBI agents everywhere, Captain Hayes being released from handcuffs, and Rex. The shepherd broke free from whoever was holding him and bolted toward Jake's gurney. The dog launched himself onto the gurney, ignoring the paramedics' protests. His tongue lapped at Jake's face, tail wagging so hard his entire back end moved. The animal was crying, actually crying, whimpering with joy and relief. "Good boy," Jake whispered, lifting his bound hands enough to touch Rex's head. "Such a good boy. You saved us, buddy. You saved us." But had he? 40 feet away, the paramedic stopped CPR on Maria, checked for a pulse, resumed compressions with renewed urgency. "She's not responding," someone said. "Prepare for intubation." Emma grabbed Jake's hand. "Don't watch, Dad. Let them work." But he couldn't look away. Maria had a 3-year-old son who needed his mother. She'd spent the last hours of her life in the dark, terrified and struggling to breathe, and the last thing she'd asked was for someone to tell Diego she loved him. The paramedic intubated her, hooked her to a portable ventilator. Her chest rose and fell mechanically. "We've got a pulse," the paramedic shouted. "Weak but steady. Let's move." They rushed Maria's gurney toward a waiting ambulance. Jake watched until they loaded her inside and the doors closed. Only then did he let his own eyes close, let the exhaustion and trauma wash over him. Emma's hand tightened on his. "You're okay. You're going to be okay." "Bennett," Jake said again. "Can't let him get away." "He won't. Deputy Director Chen is the best in the Bureau. She'll find him." But even as Emma spoke, Jake heard it, the distinctive crack of a rifle shot, distant but clear. Then shouting, agents running toward the sound. Rex's ears perked up, body going rigid. Another shot, return fire, the staccato burst of automatic weapons. "Get these civilians to cover!" someone screamed. Emma threw herself across Jake's gurney, trying to shield him. The paramedics abandoned their equipment and dove behind vehicles. Agents drew weapons and formed a perimeter. And through it all, Rex stood on Jake's gurney, hackles raised, snarling toward the source of the gunfire. Because somewhere out there, Bennett was making his last stand. And he was taking people with him. The gunfire stopped as suddenly as it started, leaving a ringing silence that felt worse than the noise. Jake tried to sit up, but his body refused commands, muscles weak from oxygen deprivation and hours of immobility. "Stay down," Emma whispered, her body still covering his. "Please, Dad, just stay down." Rex jumped from the gurney, landed hard but stayed on his feet. The shepherd's training overrode everything else. Gunfire meant his handler needed protection. The dog positioned himself between Jake and the direction of the shots, ready to intercept any threat. "Rex, stay," Jake managed to command. His voice came out barely above a whisper, but the dog heard, obeyed. Muscles quivering with the effort of holding position instead of charging toward danger. An FBI agent sprinted past their position, weapon drawn. "Suspect down! We need medical at the north perimeter!" "Is it Bennett?" Someone shouted back. "Negative! Bennett's still mobile!" "This is... Jesus Christ, it's Sheriff Martinez. He's hit bad." Emma's breath caught. "Sheriff Martinez? He's been with the department for 20 years. Why would Bennett shoot him?" Jake's mind worked through the implications even as his body fought to stay conscious. Martinez responding to the scene, seeing Bennett fleeing, trying to stop him. Or worse, Martinez already compromised, already part of Bennett's network, and they'd turned on each other when the operation collapsed. "How many?" Jake asked the paramedic who'd returned to his gurney. "How many people are involved?" "Sir, you need to conserve your energy. How many?" The paramedic exchanged glances with Emma, then relented. "We don't know yet, but Deputy Director Chen thinks it's bigger than just Bennett. A lot bigger." Captain Hayes appeared beside the gurney, his wrists still red from the handcuffs. His face was ashen, aged 10 years in the past hour. "Sullivan, I need to know everything. What did you and Torres find before they buried you?" "Underground chamber, professionally constructed. We weren't the first people taken there." Hayes's expression darkened. "What do you mean?" "We found another officer, dead, buried months ago based on decomposition." Jake forced the words out between labored breaths. "Had his badge on him, journal, documenting Bennett's operation." "Who? Which officer?" "Couldn't tell, but check your missing persons from 6 months back." Male, around 6 feet, left-handed based on how he'd positioned the journal. Hayes pulled out his phone with shaking hands, scrolled through files. His face went white. "Officer David Chen. Went missing last March. We assumed he'd walked off the job. He'd been struggling with his divorce, drinking too much. Never even investigated it as suspicious. Bennett killed him. Buried him in that chamber. Probably for the same reason he tried to kill us. Chen got too close to the truth." "What truth? What the hell is Bennett protecting?" Before Jake could answer, Deputy Director Sarah Chen's voice cut across the scene. "Captain Hayes, Officer Sullivan, you both need to hear this. Now." She approached with a tablet, her expression grim. Emma tried to step back to give them space, but Chen stopped her. "You too, Miss Sullivan. You're the one who broke this open. You deserve to know what you uncovered." Chen turned the tablet so they could all see. Security footage played, grainy, night vision quality, but clear enough. Trucks entering the mining site, men unloading cargo that moved and struggled. Children, at least a dozen, ranging from toddlers to teenagers. Jake's stomach turned to ice. "When was this?" 4 nights ago. We've been running surveillance on this site for 3 weeks, ever since we got a tip from Homeland Security about a trafficking route through Southern California. We had no idea local law enforcement was compromised until your daughter showed up with that video." "You've been watching this site for 3 weeks, and you didn't know we had officers buried alive here?" Hayes's voice shook with barely controlled rage. "You let my people die while you built your case?" We didn't know about the underground chamber. Bennett kept it completely off our radar. He was feeding us information about the site, bad information, steering us away from certain areas. We thought he was helping the investigation. He was sabotaging it. Jake's vision swam with anger and exhaustion. How high does this go? How many people in my department are dirty? We're still determining that. But based on the financial records we've pulled in the last hour, at least 6 officers are on Bennett's payroll. Maybe more. Emma's hand found Jake's shoulder, gripping tight. 6 cops? Working for traffickers? Not just working for them, running them.
Chen pulled up another file. Bennett wasn't muscle. He was the architect. Used his IA position to identify vulnerable officers, flip them or blackmail them. Created a protection network that allowed the trafficking operation to move product through 3 counties without interference. Product. Chen had said product. Jake wanted to vomit. Those were children in that footage. Kids stolen from their families, transported like cargo, and local law enforcement was facilitating it.
Where are the children now? Jake asked. The ones from 4 nights ago.
We don't know. The trucks left the mining site and we lost them in the tunnel system. Could be anywhere within a 100-mile radius by now.
Then you've got nothing. Bennett's in the wind, the kids are gone, and... More gunfire erupted, closer this time. An agent fell, clutching his leg. Others returned fire toward the tree line. "He's flanking us!" someone screamed. "Bennett's got support!" Hayes grabbed Chen's arm. "You said you've been surveilling this site for weeks. Tell me you have backup coming."
Every available unit is en route, but we're 20 miles from the nearest field office. ETA 15 minutes.
"We don't have 15 minutes!" Jake watched the chaos unfold with growing horror. Bennett wasn't running. He was attacking, trying to eliminate everyone who knew about the operation, and with other officers on his payroll, with resources and planning and desperation, he just might succeed. Rex pressed against Jake's gurney, whining. The dog sensed the danger, wanted to act, but held position because Jake had commanded it.
"Emma, you need to get out of here," Jake said. "Find cover. Get away from—" "I'm not leaving you."
"Emma, please."
"No."
Her voice was steel.
"You don't get to almost die and then send me away. I'm staying."
Another agent went down. Then another. Bennett's people had them pinned, picking off targets with calculated precision. Professional shooters, probably ex-military given their tactics. Captain Hayes drew his sidearm. "Chen, we need to evacuate the wounded, now." "We move them and Bennett's people will cut us down. We're safer holding position until backup arrives." "Backup that's still 10 minutes out while we're under active fire?" Jake's mind raced through options, training overriding his physical weakness. They were exposed, outgunned, defending wounded officers and civilian support staff. Standard protocol said dig in and wait for reinforcements, but standard protocol assumed the bad guys didn't have inside information about law enforcement response times and capabilities. Bennett knew exactly how long they had before backup arrived, knew exactly how to maximize that window. "The excavator," Jake said suddenly. "Can someone move it?" Hayes looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "What?" "The excavator. It's armored, designed to withstand impacts and debris. We could use it as a shield, move the wounded behind it while we establish a better defensive position." Chen caught on immediately.
"And if we move it closer to the tree line, we can use the bucket as cover for advancing on Bennett's position. Hayes, can your people operate heavy machinery?"
"I can." A young officer Jake didn't recognize stepped forward. "Worked construction before joining the force."
"Do it."
"Now!" The officer sprinted toward the excavator under covering fire from FBI agents. Bullets sparked off the machinery as he climbed into the cab. The engine roared to life. Bennett's people intensified their fire, recognizing the threat. The officer ducked as the windshield shattered, but kept the excavator moving. He positioned the massive machine between the wounded officers and the tree line, creating a metal barrier. "Move the gurneys," Chen ordered. "Get everyone behind that excavator." Paramedics rushed to comply. Jake felt his gurney being pushed, Emma running alongside, Rex keeping pace. They reached the excavator's protection just as another volley of gunfire erupted. Something hit the ground 3 feet from Jake's gurney. Not a bullet. A canister, spewing white smoke. "Gas!" an agent shouted. "They're smoking us out!" The chemical fog rolled across their position, burning Jake's already damaged lungs. Emma coughed, her eyes streaming. Rex sneezed violently, but stayed close. Chen grabbed her radio. "All units, we need immediate air support. Request helicopter extraction for wounded officers." "Air support is grounded due to smoke conditions," the radio crackled back. "You're on your own until the smoke clears." Bennett had planned this. Every move, every contingency. He'd worked law enforcement for 20 years, knew their tactics, their response patterns, their weaknesses. And now he was exploiting every single one. Jake's oxygen-starved brain struggled to keep up, to find an angle Bennett hadn't anticipated. There had to be something, some weakness in the plan, some oversight born from arrogance or desperation. Then he heard it. Through the smoke and gunfire and chaos, a sound he'd recognize anywhere. Sirens. Multiple vehicles, coming fast from the east. But backup was supposed to come from the west, from the FBI field office 15 miles away. These sirens were closer. Much closer. Which meant, "It's a trap!" Jake tried to shout, but his damaged voice couldn't carry over the noise. "Those aren't backup units! Bennett called them in!" Emma heard him, repeated his warning louder. "Those sirens are a trap! Bennett's people are posing as backup!" Chen's face went white with understanding. "All agents, hold fire on approaching vehicles until confirmed friendly. I repeat, hold fire, but do not assume friendly." The sirens grew louder. Through the smoke, Jake saw 3 sheriff's vehicles approaching. They had the right markings, the right equipment, everything that would make them look legitimate. But something was wrong. The lead vehicle was coming too fast, not slowing for the scene. And the positioning was off. They were approaching from an angle that would give them clear shots at the FBI agent's defensive position. "It's them," Jake said. "Those are Bennett's people." The lead vehicle's doors flew open before it fully stopped. 4 men emerged, wearing sheriff's uniforms and tactical gear. They looked legitimate. They looked like backup. Then they opened fire. Not at Bennett's position in the tree line, at the FBI agents defending the wounded officers. "Ambush!" Hayes screamed, returning fire. The scene erupted into complete chaos. FBI agents caught between Bennett's people in the trees and fake backup behind them. Smoke obscuring vision, wounded officers unable to defend themselves. Emma and the other civilians trapped in the middle of a firefight. Rex's snarl was pure violence. The dog's training told him to protect his handler at all costs. But Jake was on a gurney, unable to move, unable to fight. The shepherd's frustration was palpable, every instinct screaming to attack, while discipline demanded he hold position. "Rex, guard Emma," Jake commanded. It was the hardest order he'd ever given the dog. Telling his canine partner to protect someone else while Jake himself was defenseless went against everything they'd trained for. But Emma mattered more than his pride. Rex moved to Emma's side, pressed against her legs, teeth bared at anyone who approached. The message was clear. Get through the dog to reach the girl. An agent fell beside Jake's gurney, clutching his chest. The man's eyes locked on Jake's, fear and shock written across his face. Then the light faded. Jake had seen that look before, had held dying men while their lives drained away, but never while he himself was helpless, unable to even try to save them.
"We're getting slaughtered," Hayes said, crouching beside the gurney. Blood ran down the captain's arm from a wound he probably didn't even feel yet. "Chen, we need to surrender, or they're going to kill everyone." "We surrender, and they kill us anyway," Chen shot back, reloading her weapon. "Bennett can't leave witnesses."
Our only chance is to hold until real backup arrives. How long? 7 minutes. Maybe 8.
"We won't last 7 minutes."
An explosion shook the ground. One of the fake sheriff's vehicles had been hit by something. A grenade, maybe, or rocket. Fire consumed the vehicle, forcing Bennett's people back. Through the smoke and flames, Jake saw movement. Someone approaching from the opposite direction. Not FBI. Not Sheriff's Department. Different uniforms entirely. Emma saw them too.
"Dad, who are they?"
Jake's heart lifted despite everything. Highway Patrol. Someone must have heard the gunfire, called in a real emergency. But even as relief flooded through him, he realized the danger. Highway Patrol rolling into an active firefight with no intel, no understanding of who was friendly and who was compromised. They'd be cut down before they understood what they were walking into.
"Someone warn them!"
Jake tried to sit up, failed.
"They don't know it's a trap."
Chen was already on her radio.
"All units, approaching Highway Patrol vehicles are friendly. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage Highway Patrol."
The Highway Patrol unit stopped at a safe distance, assessing the scene. Their training was evident. They didn't rush in, didn't make themselves easy targets. They established position and called for their own backup. Bennett's people recognized the shift in dynamics. They were no longer fighting a contained unit of FBI agents. They were facing growing law enforcement presence that would soon overwhelm them. The gunfire from the tree line stopped abruptly. In the sudden silence, Jake heard an engine starting, vehicle tires on gravel. Bennett and whoever remained of his people were running.
"Don't let them get away!"
Hayes started to give chase, but Chen grabbed him.
"Let them go. We need to secure the wounded, establish a real perimeter. Highway Patrol can pursue. Bennett escapes and he'll disappear. We'll never find him."
He won't get far. Every law enforcement agency in 3 counties is looking for him now. He's got nowhere to run. But Jake knew better. Bennett had resources, connections, a network that spanned who knows how far. If he made it to the right people, got the right help, he could vanish completely. And the children from that footage would vanish with him. Jake's eyes found Emma's. His daughter's face was streaked with tears and dirt, her hands shaking with adrenaline, but her eyes were clear, determined. "The journal," Jake said. "The one we found in the chamber. From Officer Chen. It had names, locations, details about Bennett's operation." "It's still down there," Hayes realized. "In the collapsed chamber." "Then we need to recover it, now, before Bennett has time to contact whoever else is involved and they destroy evidence." Chen nodded. "I'll get a recovery team." "No time," Jake interrupted. "Every minute we wait, Bennett's warning his people."
"Send someone down now. Someone small enough to fit through the partially collapsed entrance." Everyone's eyes turned to Emma.
"Absolutely not," Jake said immediately. "I'm not sending my daughter into—"
"I'll do it." Emma's voice was steady. "Tell me what I'm looking for."
"No, Emma, no, it's too dangerous."
"Dad, you almost died down there. Officer Torres almost died. Officer Chen did die. And Bennett's still out there with information about trafficked children. So yes, I'm doing this."
"Tell me what I'm looking for." Jake wanted to refuse, wanted to order her to stay safe, let someone else take the risk. But he saw his daughter clearly in that moment, not the child he'd pushed on swings, but the woman she'd become. Brave and fierce and unwilling to stand aside while people suffered. She was already stronger than he'd ever been. "Waterproof pouch," he said quietly. "Dark green, about the size of a paperback book." Officer Chen hid it in the northwest corner of the chamber, buried under about 6 inches of loose dirt.
Emma nodded. Northwest corner, 6 inches down. Got it. Rex whined, sensing the separation coming. The dog looked between Emma and Jake, confused about who to protect. Rex stays with me, Jake said. You take this. He managed to work his badge loose from his vest with his bound hands. Show this to anyone who tries to stop you. Tell them you're operating on direct orders from Deputy Director Chen. Chen handed Emma a flashlight. 5 minutes. You're in and out in 5 minutes. Any longer and we're pulling you out whether you found it or not. Emma took the flashlight, started toward the collapsed chamber, then stopped, ran back, and kissed Jake's forehead. Don't die while I'm gone. That's my line. She smiled through her tears. Then she was gone, disappearing into the smoke toward the excavation site, and Jake could do nothing but wait and pray his daughter would come back alive. Every second Emma was underground felt like an hour. Jake stared at the excavation site, willing his daughter to reappear. Rex paced beside the gurney, whining low in his throat, sensing Jake's distress. She's been down there 3 minutes, Hayes said, checking his watch. 2 more and we pull her out. She'll find it. Jake forced conviction into his voice. Emma doesn't quit. Chen's radio crackled. Deputy Director, we've got movement on the north perimeter. Single vehicle heading away from the site at high speed. That's Bennett, Hayes said. He's making his run. Let Highway Patrol handle pursuit. Our priority is securing this scene and recovering evidence. But Chen's jaw was tight with frustration. She wanted Bennett as badly as any of them. A paramedic approached Jake's gurney. Sir, we really need to transport you to the hospital. Your oxygen levels are dangerously low. Not until my daughter comes back. Officer Sullivan, I said no. Jake's voice came out harder than he'd intended. I'm not leaving her here. Rex barked sharply, his attention fixed on the excavation site. The dog's tail started wagging. Then Emma emerged from the collapsed chamber, covered in dirt, clutching the waterproof pouch against her chest. She was coughing, struggling to breathe in the dust-filled air, but moving under her own power. Jake's heart restarted. Emma made it back to the gurney and collapsed beside it, gasping. Got it. I got the journal. Chen took the pouch, opened it carefully. Inside was exactly what Jake had described. A small notebook, its pages filled with Officer David Chen's handwriting. The deputy director's hands trembled slightly as she read the first page. This is everything, she breathed. Names, dates, locations, financial records. He documented Bennett's entire network. She looked up at Hayes. Your officer died a hero, Captain. This journal is going to bring down a trafficking operation that spans 5 states. How many people are involved? Hayes asked. Chen flipped through pages, her expression growing darker. 17 law enforcement officers across California, Nevada, and Arizona. 3 judges. Multiple Border Patrol agents, and... She stopped, her face going white. What? Jake demanded. A U.S. Senator. Bennett was being protected by Senator Richard Walton. The name hit like a physical blow. Walton was a former prosecutor, built his entire political career on being tough on crime. He chaired the Senate Committee on Human Trafficking, for God's sake, and he'd been facilitating it the entire time. That's why the FBI response was so delayed, Chen said, pieces falling into place. Walton has contacts throughout the Bureau. He was feeding Bennett information about our investigation, helping him stay ahead of us. Can you prove it? Emma asked. The journal mentions him specifically? Chen held up a page covered in Officer Chen's meticulous notes. Bank transfers from an account linked to Walton's chief of staff. Meeting notes with dates and locations. Even photographs. Chen must have been surveilling Bennett for months before they caught him. Jake felt a surge of respect for the fallen officer.
David Chen had known he was investigating someone powerful, had known the danger, but kept building his case anyway, kept collecting evidence even as the walls closed in. And when they'd finally gotten him, he'd hidden that evidence where it might be found. "We need to move on this now," Hayes said, "before Walton hears that we've recovered the journal and starts destroying evidence." "Already on it." Chen was typing rapidly on her phone. "I'm sending this directly to the Attorney General's office, bypassing normal channels to avoid any more leaks." An ambulance pulled up beside Jake's gurney. "Sir, we really need to transport you now, and Officer Torres is critical. She needs advanced care immediately." Jake looked toward where Maria's gurney had been positioned. Her face was gray, the ventilator still breathing for her. She'd survived the burial, survived the oxygen deprivation, but her body was shutting down from the trauma. "Go," Emma said quietly. "I'll follow with Captain Hayes. Rex can come with me." "You're not staying here. This scene is still active. Bennett's still out there."
"Dad, there are 20 FBI agents and a dozen highway patrol officers here. I'll be fine. You won't be if you don't get to a hospital." Jake wanted to argue, but consciousness was slipping again. His body had been running on adrenaline and determination, and both were finally giving out.
"Take care of Rex," he managed to say. "He hasn't eaten since morning."
"There's kibble in my patrol vehicle, and he gets 2 cups mixed with a little warm water because his stomach's sensitive." "I know, Dad. I've been taking care of him since I was 12. Of course she had. Emma had always been the responsible one, the one who remembered details and anticipated needs. She'd had to grow up too fast after Sarah died, had learned to take care of herself and her father both. The paramedics lifted his gurney into the ambulance. Through the open doors, Jake watched Emma kneel beside Rex, her arms around the shepherd's neck. The dog licked her face, accepting her care, even though every fiber of his being wanted to stay with Jake. "I'll bring him to the hospital as soon as they clear the scene," Emma called. "I promise." The ambulance doors closed. Maria's gurney was beside his, her ventilator humming. A paramedic worked over her, checking vitals, adjusting medications. The woman's expression was professionally neutral, but Jake saw the concern in her eyes. "Is she going to make it?" he asked. "She's a fighter. Made it this far." The paramedic met his gaze. "You both did. That's more than most people could manage." The ambulance pulled away from the scene, sirens wailing. Through the small window, Jake caught one last glimpse of Emma standing with Rex and Captain Hayes, the excavation site behind them like a wound in the earth. Then exhaustion dragged him under completely. He woke to fluorescent lights and the steady beep of monitors. Hospital room. Private, which meant they were worried about security. His hands were free from the zip ties, IV lines running into both arms. An oxygen cannula in his nose. "You're awake?" A nurse appeared beside his bed, checking his vitals. "That's good. You've been out for 8 hours." "Maria Torres. Where is she?" "Officer Torres is in ICU. They had to put her in a medically induced coma to give her body time to heal. But she's stable. Doctors are optimistic." Relief washed through him. "My daughter, Emma Sullivan. Is she here?" "In the waiting room with your dog. Hospital administration made an exception to allow the canine on premises given the circumstances. Your daughter refused to leave until she could see you." "Send her in, please." The nurse hesitated. "There are also several FBI agents who've been waiting to interview you, and reporters. The press has been camped outside since you arrived. This is a major story." Jake's stomach turned. Of course it was. 2 cops buried alive, a firefight with corrupt officers, a U.S. senator involved in human trafficking. The media would be circling like sharks. "Emma first," he said firmly. "Then I'll talk to the FBI. The press can wait forever, as far as I'm concerned." The nurse nodded and left. Minutes later, Emma burst through the door. Rex at her heels. The shepherd launched himself onto Jake's bed, tail wagging so hard his entire body shook. The dog's tongue lapped at Jake's face, whining with joy. "I know, buddy, I know. I missed you too." Jake managed to get his arms around Rex's neck, felt the animal's solid warmth, his absolute devotion. "Good boy. Such a good boy. You saved my life." Emma stood at the foot of the bed, tears streaming down her face. "Don't ever do that again." "Don't ever make me think I'm going to lose you. Come here." She moved to his side, and Jake pulled her into a one-armed hug. Rex pressed between them. His daughter, his dog, his family, all of them alive against impossible odds. "You saved me," Jake said quietly. "That video you sent to the FBI, showing up at the scene, going down into that chamber to get the journal. Emma, you saved both of us." "I just did what you taught me. Never quit. Never give up on people who need help." She wiped her eyes. "Mom would be proud of both of us." Sarah would have been. Jake could almost feel her presence in the room, could imagine her saying the words she'd said 1,000 times during her life, that protecting people mattered, that standing up to injustice was worth any cost, that love meant fighting for each other no matter what. "What's happened with Bennett?" Jake asked. "Did they catch him?" Emma's expression darkened. "Highway Patrol tracked him to the border. He tried to cross into Mexico, but border agents stopped him. He's in federal custody now. Won't be seeing daylight again for the rest of his life." "And the others? The officers on his payroll?" 14 arrests so far. 3 more are still at large, but FBI has warrants out. And Senator Walton..." Emma pulled out her phone, showed Jake the news headlines. "He tried to flee to his estate in the Cayman Islands. Got arrested at the airport. It's all over the news." Jake scrolled through the articles, hardly believing what he was reading. The entire network exposed. Years of corruption, dozens of trafficked children, millions of dollars in illegal profits. All brought down by a canine who wouldn't stop barking and a dead officer's journal. "What about the children?" Jake asked, dreading the answer. "The ones from the footage Chen showed us. Did they find them?" Emma's face brightened. "That's the good news." Once Bennett was in custody, he gave up the location trying to negotiate a deal. FBI raided a warehouse in San Bernardino this morning, recovered 18 children, ranging from 4 to 16 years old. They're all alive, all getting medical care. 18 children who would see their families again. 18 kids who would have a chance at normal lives. Jake felt something loosen in his chest, the weight of failure, of almost dying before making a difference, finally lifting. "Officer Chen's family is flying in tomorrow," Emma continued. "Deputy Director Sarah Chen wants to meet them, present them with David's Medal of Valor. She told me to tell you that without his journal, without what you and Officer Torres preserved, they never would have gotten the evidence needed to make arrests stick." Jake thought about the officer buried in that chamber for 6 months, alone in the dark. David Chen had died for this case, had sacrificed everything to document the truth, and now his death had meaning, had purpose. "I want to attend the ceremony," Jake said. "When they honor Chen, I need to be there. Doctor says you'll be here at least 3 more days. But after that, yeah, we'll be there." A knock on the door interrupted them. Deputy Director Chen entered, looking exhausted but satisfied. "Officer Sullivan, good to see you conscious." "Deputy Director, thank you for listening when it mattered. Thank your daughter." She marched into my field office at midnight with a video and refused to leave until someone took her seriously. Most persistent 17-year-old I've ever met. Emma blushed slightly, but held Chen's gaze. "My dad taught me that sometimes you have to make people listen." Well, it worked. We've dismantled a trafficking network that's been operating for at least 5 years, recovered 18 victims so far, and based on Bennett's testimony, we're expecting to find more. The DOJ is calling it one of the most significant trafficking busts in California history. What about the other officers? Jake asked. The ones who weren't involved. How do we rebuild trust when 14 cops from our county were selling children? Chen's expression sobered. That's the hard part. It'll take years to restore faith in law enforcement here. But it starts with people like you and Officer Torres, heroes who almost died exposing the truth. That matters. The public needs to see that good cops still exist, that the majority of officers are willing to put their lives on the line to protect people. Jake wasn't sure he felt like a hero. He felt like someone who'd stumbled into a nightmare and barely survived it. But he understood what Chen meant. Perception mattered, especially now. I'll need your full statement, Chen continued. Everything you remember from the time of the ambush until rescue. Take your time, but we need it on record. I'll give you everything. But first I need to know, is Bennett talking? Is he giving up names beyond what was in the journal? He's singing like a bird, trying to reduce his sentence. Given us locations of 3 more burial chambers, thankfully all empty. Confirmed involvement of 2 federal judges and a deputy director at ICE. It's going to be a long investigation, but we've got the core of it. Emma's phone buzzed. She checked it, then looked at Jake with wide eyes.
Dad, you need to see this. It's from Officer Torres.
Maria's awake?
No, but her phone was recovered from the scene. There's a message she recorded before she lost consciousness. The hospital staff just got into her phone and found it.
Emma held up the phone. Maria's face filled the screen, filmed from an awkward angle in near-complete darkness. Her voice was weak, slurred with oxygen deprivation, but determined.
Diego, if you're seeing this, it means I didn't make it out.
And I need you to know something. Your mama loved you more than anything in this world. Every decision I made, every hour I worked, it was all to make the world safer for you. I'm sorry I wasn't there more. I'm sorry I chose the job over bedtime stories and playground visits. But I need you to understand, the work mattered. Protecting kids like you, that mattered. And I'd do it all again because you deserve to grow up in a world where monsters don't win. I love you, baby. Never forget that. The video ended. Emma was crying. Chen had turned away, wiping her eyes. Even Rex seemed to sense the emotion in the room, pressed closer against Jake's side. She's going to get to tell him that herself, Jake said firmly. Maria's going to survive this, and she's going to be a better mother because of it. She's going to realize that being present matters more than being perfect.
You really believe that?
Emma asked quietly. I have to, because if Maria can come back from this, if we can rebuild after almost dying in the dark, then there's hope for all of us. Jake looked at his daughter. I'm taking time off. Real time, not just a few days, but months. I want to do those college visits with you. Want to be there when you make decisions about your future. Want to stop letting this job take everything from me. Emma's face transformed, hope and joy breaking through the tears.
Really? You mean it?
I mean it. Life's too short to miss the important things. I learned that buried 18 feet underground with 6 hours of air left. Captain Hayes appeared in the doorway. Sullivan, sorry to interrupt, but you need to know something. The review board is meeting tomorrow about department restructuring. After what happened, after losing 14 officers to corruption, they're bringing in outside oversight. Good. They should. They want you to testify. Want you to help identify which officers can be trusted, which protocols need changing. It's going to be ugly. Internal affairs investigating internal affairs. Everyone under suspicion until proven clean. Jake nodded slowly. I'll do whatever's needed.
But Hayes, I need you to understand something. I'm not coming back full-time. I'm scaling back to part-time, training new canine units maybe, but not active patrol. Hayes looked like he wanted to argue, then seemed to understand. Can't say I blame you. After what you went through, most people would quit entirely. I'm not quitting, just rebalancing. This job almost killed me, almost cost Emma her father. I need to figure out how to serve without sacrificing everything. That's fair. And Sullivan, Hayes paused. I'm sorry, I should have listened to Rex sooner. Should have trusted his alert immediately instead of letting Bennett delay the search. If I had, maybe you and Torres wouldn't have come so close to dying. You can't think like that. You did everything right once you understood the situation. Bennett was the problem, not you. But Hayes clearly carried the guilt anyway. Jake understood. The captain would replay those hours forever, wondering if he could have moved faster, pushed harder, saved them sooner. Emma's phone buzzed again. She checked it, then smiled. Officer Torres is awake. ICU just called. She's asking for you. Jake tried to sit up, but his body protested. I need to see her. Doctor's orders say you stay in bed for at least 24 hours, the nurse said, appearing in the doorway. But we can arrange a video call if you'd like. It wasn't the same as being there in person, but it would have to do. Emma set up the video connection, angled the phone so Jake could see the screen. Maria's face appeared, pale and drawn, oxygen mask over her nose and mouth. But her eyes were clear and focused. Jake, she said, her voice barely audible. We made it. We made it. How are you feeling? Like I got buried alive and nearly suffocated. But alive. That's what counts. She paused, struggling to breathe. Did they get him? Did they get Bennett? They got everyone, the whole network. And Emma recovered Officer Chen's journal. All his evidence survived. Maria's eyes filled with tears. David Chen's evidence. He died for that case and I never even knew. Never even thought to question Bennett's report when Chen went missing. None of us did. Bennett was too good at hiding. Those kids, Maria whispered. The ones they trafficked. Did they? 18 recovered, all alive, getting help. Relief washed across Maria's face. Good, that's good. Then it was worth it. All of it. They talked for a few more minutes until Maria's energy faded. The ICU nurse gently ended the call, promising to update Jake on her condition every few hours. Emma pocketed her phone. She's going to be okay, right? She's a fighter, just like you. Jake pulled Emma close again, just like all of us. The next days passed in a blur of interviews, statements, and medical procedures. Jake gave his testimony to the FBI, helped Captain Hayes identify which officers could be trusted for the department restructuring, and worked with therapists to process the trauma of being buried alive. Rex never left his side. The hospital granted special permission for the canine to stay in Jake's room, understanding that the bond between handler and dog was critical to both their recoveries. The shepherd slept on Jake's bed every night, pressed against his side, a warm and solid reminder that they'd survived together. Emma came every day, bringing homework she completed in the chair beside his bed. She talked about college applications, about Berkeley's criminal justice program, about wanting to make a difference the way her father had. And for the first time in years, Jake really listened, really engaged, present in a way he hadn't been since Sarah died. On the fourth day, doctors cleared him to attend Officer David Chen's memorial service. Jake dressed in his uniform, Emma in a black dress Sarah had bought her for formal occasions. Rex wore his canine vest, medals gleaming. The service was held at the county courthouse, packed with law enforcement from across California. David Chen's wife and 2 teenage daughters sat in the front row, accepting condolences from officers who'd never even known David was missing.
Deputy Director Sarah Chen, no relation despite sharing a last name, presented David's posthumous Medal of Valor. She spoke about his courage, his dedication, his sacrifice, spoke about how his evidence had saved 18 children and brought down a network of corruption that had poisoned law enforcement. Officer David Chen spent the last months of his life documenting evil, Chen said. He knew the danger, knew that investigating his own colleagues could cost him everything. But he did it anyway, because protecting the innocent mattered more than his own safety. He died alone in the dark, but his legacy is 18 children who will see their families again. That's the definition of a hero. Jake stood to give his own testimony, Emma beside him for support. He spoke about finding David's journal, about how that evidence had led to the arrests. Spoke about the courage it took to keep investigating even when you knew your own department was compromised. I didn't know Officer Chen, Jake said. Never had the chance to work with him. But I owe him my life. His journal gave us the proof we needed to expose Detective Bennett and everyone else involved. And I promise his family, his colleagues, and everyone here today, we will make sure David Chen's sacrifice means something. We will rebuild this department into something worthy of his memory. The applause was thunderous. David's wife approached Jake afterward, tears streaming down her face. Thank you for finding his journal, for making sure people know what he did, for giving his death meaning. Your husband was a hero, Jake said quietly. The truest kind. The kind who sacrifices everything with no guarantee anyone will ever know. She hugged him, and Jake felt the weight of survival guilt settle heavier on his shoulders. David Chen had done everything right, had built an airtight case, and died anyway. While Jake, who'd stumbled into the investigation by accident, had survived. It wasn't fair. It wasn't just. But it was reality, and Jake owed it to David to make the most of the second chance he'd been given. 3 weeks later, Jake returned to work part-time, focusing on training new canine units. Emma had been accepted to Berkeley's early admission program, would start classes in the fall. Maria Torres was out of the hospital, working with therapists to overcome the PTSD from being buried alive, and planning a trip to Phoenix to spend real time with Diego. Bennett and 13 other officers were awaiting trial. Senator Walton had been formally censured by the Senate and charged with multiple federal crimes. The FBI had recovered a total of 31 trafficked children from locations across 5 states, and every night, Jake went home to Emma and Rex, grateful for the ordinary moments he'd almost lost forever. One evening, 6 months after the burial, Jake sat on his back porch watching Emma throw a ball for Rex. The shepherd raced across the yard, tail wagging, no longer haunted by the memory of frantically digging at frozen ground while his handler suffocated below. Emma flopped down beside Jake on the porch steps. Got my first semester grades today. Dean's list. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Your mom would be too. I'm majoring in criminal justice. Going to be a cop like you and Mom. Going to make a difference. Jake wanted to warn her about the darkness in the job, the danger, the cost. 20 to tell her to choose something safer, something that wouldn't put her in situations where canine dogs had to frantically bark to save her life. But he didn't. Because Emma had already proven she was exactly the kind of person law enforcement needed. Brave, smart, unwilling to look away from injustice. The world needed people like her more than it needed another software developer or accountant. Just promise me one thing, Jake said. Promise me you'll remember what matters, that you won't let the job take everything from you the way I did, that you'll find balance. I promise. But Dad, you found balance too. You survived being buried alive and came out of it a better father. That's pretty impressive.
Jake pulled her into a hug. I had good motivation. A daughter who refused to give up on me. And a dog who barked until someone listened. Rex trotted over, dropped the ball at their feet, tail wagging.
The shepherd looked at Jake with absolute trust, absolute devotion. Ready for the next adventure, the next challenge, the next chance to serve. Good boy, Jake said, scratching behind Rex's ears. Best partner I ever had. Because in the end, that's what had saved them. Loyalty stronger than fear, determination that wouldn't quit, and the absolute refusal to abandon each other, no matter how dark it got or how impossible survival seemed. That was the lesson Jake would carry forward. That was the story he'd tell anyone who asked how he'd survived being buried alive. You survive by refusing to give up on the people who refuse to give up on you, by trusting in bonds that go deeper than words, and by remembering that even in absolute darkness, hope can find a way through.